What's up, Internet? Welcome back to French Faith. I'm sitting here at a cafe in Reading and editing tomorrow's episode. I'm super far behind. I should have recorded something for today before now, but here we are. I've got like 8 episodes backlogged for the full podcasts and all that because I'm potentially days or weeks away from us having our kids. So it's going to be incredible. Just prepping for that, and I'm super excited. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about something I've been learning a little bit about. Not a lot. I'm not an expert, obviously, but thought I'd share. A lot of you probably know about the podcast called Telepathy Tapes. It got super popular, and I think it actually dethroned Rogan at one point for a few weeks or something like that as the top podcast in America. And if you know, you know. Basically, it's about nonverbal autistics and how they're able to communicate, and sort of this idea that they may have this power of telepathy. And there's science behind why they believe this is accurate and why this is actually a phenomenon that actually happens. I tend to think it makes sense because um, a lot of the CIA documentation and behind like MK Ultra type stuff and some other projects they've done that I can't remember the names of. They've done experiments in telepathy and astral projection and all this other stuff, and have proved that it's possible. So it makes sense to me that nonverbal autistics probably have access to parts of their brain that the rest of us don't. And it's it's fascinating to me because we've explored the idea of people seeing in the spirit a bit, and we're going to continue to explore that. And there's these autistic kids that go to this place that they call the Hill. And by the way that they're able to communicate because they're nonverbal is through this thing called spelling. Basically, they take a mat with an alphabet on it, and they learn to basically spell out words. That's why they're called spellers. So they spell out words, and it's difficult for them because of the neurological issues that they have, but they learn how to do it, and they begin to communicate with these people. And one of the guys from that was interviewed on the telepathy tapes, he was brought on to Blurry Creatures because he's a pastor, and he wanted to share sort of the Christian perspective on it, and they sort of removed a lot of that from the telepathy tapes interviews with him, and instead they let me pull up his name here real quick. But instead of actually talking about the Jesus part very much, they kind of cut a lot of that out. And so Blurry Creatures had him on, and he was speaking about how these kids go to this place called the Hill, and they meet with Jesus. And they talk about these other spirits that are trying to deceive. There's a lot of information about people that wrong one. People that go into the spirit. They talk about these false Jesuses that are trying to deceive people, and so these nonverbal autistic types are talking about very similar things, talking about these deceptive spirits and stuff. But then they talk about Jesus, and in an episode coming up soon, I interviewed my friend and mentor Jonathan Thomas, and we talked about how when you encounter like Jesus, the actual Jesus, it's not just frou-frou, lovey-dovey, whatever. It's like real and raw and powerful, and it is love, but it's on a whole other level. And so I guess it's just fun to think about the fact that these kids, episode 314 on Blurry Creatures, and the man's name is Joe and Franco. And anyways, it's just fascinating to realize that like kids that seem like they are quote unquote a burden on society, as some people would call it, they're actually a benefit to society, because once we learn how to interact with them and communicate with them, I mean, they have like this telepathic connect with their mothers and stuff, where they're able to guess what the mother's looking at, it's incredible. Seriously, you should look into it. But learning about it, it just reminds me that God really does use the least among society to confound the wise of society. You know what I mean? That least shall be first kind of ideology, but also that using the foolish things of the world to confound the wise thing. Because these kids are really having interactions with Jesus. They're a lot of times more passionate about Jesus than the rest of us. And we have to be spending time learning about how these kids interact with the world, so that we interact with them better. One of the things that he was talking about was a lot of times once these kids learn how to spell and they start talking, people realize like, oh, they actually hate the things that I thought they liked. So one thing that happens is they'll get stuck on a loop, and it's like an unintentional loop. It's nothing that they can control, but they'll say words, but they can't communicate well. So maybe they'll see Barney and their brain will get stuck on Barney, and instead of getting out the sentence "I hate Barney," they will just say it over and over again, and their parents will be like, "Oh, well, they must love Barney, so let's show them, like, let's put them in front of Barney," and they're like, "I hate that. Don't do that." And so I guess it's just fascinating. I love it because I love learning about it because it confounds everything that you would expect. You know, similarly, I had experiences with this home in Tennessee that when I was younger we would go to for sort of like a youth group missions trip thing, and it was mostly kids with Down syndrome. And if you guys haven't had experiences with kids that are autistic or Down syndrome or whatever, you really should, because there's a dynamic that you don't get among normal people. These kids love Jesus so well. They love people so well. They, that on the autistic side, they may not have the emotional thing down, and they may not know how to express it, but they really do have this aspect of Jesus that the rest of us don't. And so for those of you that are interested, again, it's episode 314 on blurry creatures. It's so fascinating, and it's just something worth learning about. And so that's why I figured I'd talk about it today on my What We're Learning bonus episodes. So if you guys enjoy the podcast, if you enjoy these episodes, if you're listening to just the audio on Spotify, just wanted you to know that I'm also doing this stuff on YouTube. So if you guys can subscribe wherever it is that you're listening, and share it with people, that would be fantastic. It really helps. I've got so many episodes backlogged for the actual podcast coming up, and yeah, I'm really enjoying doing this. I've got stickers for the podcast. I got a handful of them, not very many, but if you want one, let me know. Maybe I'll send it to you. And yeah, just thanks for listening. Thanks for let me know. Comment. You leave comments on episodes. Things that you find interesting, or things that you want me to talk about that you think would fit within the podcast dynamics. Anyways, love you guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.